Welcome to Success by 25. In a world where only those who dare to absorb everything ever grow, one rule stands above all: absorb everything, regret nothing. This is the philosophy of relentless growth. Out there, the world is boundless. Every day, new faces emerge, sharp and brilliant unrepeatable stars flickering against the chaos of the night sky. History itself is a cemetery of so-called geniuses, where every worn page hides the names of those who once stood at the peak, who once tasted glory, and who were eventually erased by the next wave. That is the truth of this world. There will always be someone new, always those who surpass every old expectation, breaking every standard, and who, in turn, will one day yield their place to unfamiliar faces. It is easy for the young to fall for illusions about themselves, believing that sheer effort alone will make them the center of everything, the irreplaceable star. But the world never stops to wait for anyone. Everywhere, there are people of talent, brilliance, and unfathomable will. Today, you may be celebrated. Tomorrow, your name may slip quietly from the memory of everyone. That bitter truth is understood only by those who have stood atop the summit, only to tumble into the depths. The only path forward, the only way to rise, is not to wall oneself off from the world, not to reject every outside influence, but to learn, to listen, to absorb, to accumulate from every direction. There is an old saying: the sea becomes great because it refuses no river. The ocean grows vast by embracing every stream, every drop, refusing nothing. By being open, by gathering fragments of wisdom, regardless of their source, the sea becomes boundless. That is the greatest principle of all growth. Only those who can lower their pride, open their mind wide enough, and dare to learn from even the most unlikely teachers will ever go far. The truth is, this world has never lacked for talent. What's missing is patience, the courage to learn, and the ability to accumulate. The weak are those who believe they're already enough, who shy away from comparison, who flinch from admitting their own flaws. The strong are those who understand their own smallness, who know they are a single drop in the vast sea, and so never stop searching, never reject knowledge, even when it comes from adversaries or those once looked down upon. People ask, what is the real source of motivation? Is it ambition, the dream of doing something great, or simply the fear of being left behind? In truth, the deepest motivation in humanity is wrapped up in a single word: greed. A bottomless hunger to know more, to become better, to reach what no one else has touched. Society may call it ugly, selfish, delusional fantasy for dreamers. But that same greed, if harnessed, becomes the fire that keeps a person from sinking into mediocrity. Many spend their lives afraid of being laughed at, terrified of being called greedy or unrealistic. They shrink themselves to fit the mold society expects, never breaking out, never trying what the crowd calls madness. But history remembers none of the safe. It forgets those who live by the script of the majority. The truly great from every era have all been ridiculed, labeled outsiders, paid dearly for their stubbornness. But regret never haunted them, because the greatest loss in life is not failure. It is never daring to try, never living fully for the hunger that is uniquely your own. Look closely at those who have ever left a mark on history, from scientists and artists to entrepreneurs and inventors, even ordinary people who once overcame fate. What do they all have in common? None made it alone. None relied solely on their own strength to achieve greatness. Each learned to listen, to absorb, to harvest the brilliance of others, to stand on the shoulders of giants and see further, travel farther. They were never ashamed to admit their smallness, their ignorance, their failures. On the contrary, it was this relentless honesty that made them unshakable, untouchable by the storms of time. The development of a person mirrors the expansion of the ocean. If you seal yourself off, refusing every strange current, you become nothing but a stagnant pond, soon to dry up or rot away. Only when you open yourself, welcoming every new flow, no matter how small or unfamiliar, do you become vast, unpredictable, and strong. Never be ashamed of your lack your ignorance, your naivety. Be greedy for knowledge, hungry for experience, even eager for failure, because every failure, if claimed, is another river that feeds your sea. Yet, what is the price of such greed? It is loneliness, ridicule, the burden of walking against the current, of enduring suspicion and even scorn. Those who hunger for growth, who never stop learning, are always called different, restless, never satisfied. But inside, they know better to fail in a journey of passion than live a safe life, never daring, never erring, never discovering how far you could have gone. Most people spend their lives playing it safe, just enough to avoid mockery, just enough to blend in. But ask yourself, if you live only once, do you really want to waste it on mediocrity, on fear of other people's eyes? Or will you dare to widen your hunger, embrace every risk, so that even in the end, should you fail, there is nothing left but pride in having lived with every ounce of desire? This is the cold arrogance of those who dare to dream, dare to act, dare to bear the weight of their own choices. There will always be those who say, the world is too harsh, that there are too many gifted people, that you can never measure up, no matter how much you learn. But remember, the sea never competes with any single drop. It simply grows, taking in every stream, every rainfall, every lonely tear. Those with true will never stop gathering, never stop listening, never stop absorbing value, no matter how small. And someday, they too will become part of the ocean vast and unassailable. This world has no place for the complacent, nor for those who fear mockery. Only those who are greedy for knowledge, willing to admit their lack, hungry to learn without fatigue, will ever go far. Every failure is a river, every experience a stream, gathering endlessly into the endless ocean. Do you want to be a drop that flows on forever, or a stagnant puddle that dries up and disappears? The choice, as always, is yours. Don't be afraid to be greedy for knowledge. Don't be afraid of ridicule. Don't be afraid to fail. The only thing worth fearing is never having tried, never having lived to the depths of your own longing. The sea becomes an ocean by never refusing a single flow. If you wish to become great, always be one who receives, who accumulates, who opens themselves to all things. In the end, only those who gather all the wisdom of those who came before, who dare every risk, who live fully for their own hunger, will ever live a life without regret. True achievers never ask, can I surpass the world? They only ask, how much have I absorbed? How open have I dared to be? Have I lived every ounce of my ambition, regardless of the outcome? In a world where layers upon layers of talent constantly replace one another, comparison becomes meaningless unless you have the courage to absorb the strengths of others, to realize your own limits are nothing but a starting linenot, a final wall. Some choose to justify their stagnation with excuses. Wrong era, no opportunities, too many gifted people, so trying is pointless. Yet the sea never complains about too many rivers pouring in. It simply accepts, expands, deepens, swallows everything, and becomes greater with every drop. So must every person either open up to absorb all value, all inspiration, every triumph and every failure from others into themselves, or else shrink back into a stagnant pond drying up alone. Look at history's giants, those rare, extraordinary individuals. They all stole the essence of every era, openly admitted their weaknesses, and relentlessly built a new self from the fragments of the past. They didn't care about being mocked, didn't fear being called greedy, and weren't obsessed with where the journey would end. Their only concern was what they could absorb today and whether they had grown beyond who they were yesterday. Every achievement may be fleeting, every glory destined to fade. But there is one thing no one can ever take from you: the growth you accumulate, every experience, every lesson, every time you fail and rise again. That is the one legacy that is truly yours. The only weapon against mediocrity, against the fear that creeps in when you stand among the truly gifted. No one demands you be a genius. No one expects you to surpass the whole world. But if you refuse to receive, Refuse to collect the wisdom of those before you. Refuse to hunger for knowledge. Refuse to experience failure. Your life will circle endlessly in the small pond you dug for yourself, making excuses, complaining, and shrinking year by year. Growth is a cold journey, often a lonely one. No one promises that opening yourself will always bring back good things. No one guarantees every effort will succeed. But at the very least, when you look back, there will be no what if, no regret over a life lived too safely, too timidly, too closed. You will know that even in failure, you have lived without regret. Remember, those who hunger for knowledge, who open to every new thing, who are unafraid of failure, these are the ones who eventually become an ocean unto themselves. Those who only cling to what is small will be left with nothing but regret, drying up in their own shrinking puddle. Every step forward is a choice to absorb more, to regret less, to become more of who you truly are. Thank you for taking the time to watch until the end. If this video meant something to you, please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.